Welcome everyone, Costin here with my campaign analysis for Balthasar Gelt's campaign in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. Out of the legendary lords of the Empire, Gelt is a very powerful one. In fact, while Elspeth may have the best army of the Empire, Gelt may have the most ridiculous amount of campaign power, especially if you push things to the limit in his campaign. The way his campaign is structured, the first thing you're going to have to contend with is the Caphean dilemma, because you start next to the Temple of Elemental Winds, and then you have a choice on whether or not you stay in Cathay once the Burning Wind nomads are wiped out, or if you leave Cathay. If you stay in Cathay, you can keep the Temple of Elemental Winds. You can go to war with Cathay, you can be best friends with Cathay, that's besides the point. But importantly, you do get the mastery of elemental winds. Pretty sizable benefit in Gelt's campaign. And then there's also a landmark here as well. The downside is that you're missing out on opportunities with the Empire. To be sure, there are ways of confederating Imperial factions from a distance, in particular factions like Talabayam or maybe Stirland, if you get vision with them. The best way to gain vision is with Caphean caravans from Xiaoming. You can absolutely do that. But that's assuming you don't intend to go back to the Empire. But if you don't intend to go back to the Empire, making an alliance with Xiaoming can be really to your benefit, because eventually you might be able to just get some distant confederation. But here's the thing. The event that happens is when this faction gets wiped out. And when that event comes up, all of the territory that you have in Cathay will be transferred to Xiaoming, or you get to declare war on him. That's assuming you decide to go back to the Empire. If you stay in Cathay, you can be friends, or you can essentially end up in a war with him. But it's territory in Cathay. There are parts near Cathay that don't count for it. So Noblar County, for instance, or the Ivory Road. Now, I would probably recommend not picking a fight with Greases. Just a personal perspective on that. So you can manipulate the situation so that you are abandoning Cathay, but you're also staying in the Cathayan region so you can colonize things again. You do need to abandon Temple of Elemental Winds because it's your capital, but with other territories, you can either let Xiaoming hold them. Like, you can certainly let Xiaoming take the Temple of Elemental Winds, but that's kind of defeating the point. With other regions, you can either abandon them, or let Xiaoming take them, or sell them to a faction that has a ton of money that is right next to it. And that is, of course, the Defenders of the Great Plan. Sell these guys stuff with barracks, you will get a lot of money in the process. And you might be spending a lot of money too, because another thing that Gelt can do is he can get all the Electrocount State Troopers through research, one turn research, that's 7,500 gold. So once you've set that all up, if you are willing to pursue that, sure, you can just play normally, stay in Cathay, and all that. But if you're going down this path, then you come over here, wipe the Burning Nomads, and then you get the event on whether you stay in Cathay one way or another, so you can get the Defensive Alliance. To be fair, you can get the Defensive Alliance before this, and it might be recommended just to get those caravans. You can refuse, which will sour relations between you and Xiaoming, or you can return the land, transport all forces and heroes back to the Empire, the ones that you control, and you get 25,000 and Triumphant Homecoming. Population surplus 1 for newly captured settlements, immune to diplomatic penalties from trespassing, immune to regionless attrition, minus 100% upkeep, 30% campaign movement range, and minus 50% construction time faction-wide. And you end up over here with every army you have and every hero you have in the Altdorf area. You do actually have movement range. If you do this, I would probably go and wipe out Elspeth, because you can actually get Nolten to a higher level than she can for this and show her who's the real master of artillery. But you will keep any region outside of Cathay under your control. It would be pretty silly to confederate an imperial faction in the Empire and then not keep that just because the event came up. But once this happens, what you can do very quickly as Gelt is, if you have even a single region outside of Cathay, and you've done this, and remember, you have minus 100% upkeep. What you can do is then show up over here and just recruit an entire stack of units, or close to a stack of units. Things like Regiments of Renown. And just go retake this territory from Nakai, if you want to. And get the Temple of Elemental Winds. There are degrees on how far you want to do that. One of the things you can do, by the way, the Bamboo Crossing, is you can sack the settlement once, destroy the garrison, etc., and then just leave an army here. It doesn't have to be an especially large army, but sack it, that's their last force, and just keep the prolonged siege. If they have any unit whatsoever inside the settlement, like if the garrison has any unit, if it's empty, you'll just get the settlement options like sacking, looting, occupying. But if there is any unit in the garrison or in the settlement, you will get a siege. It won't be a very long siege, a couple of turns, but you can just wait it out. What will happen is, once that timer expires on a siege, they will sally out, but it's very easy to defeat them there. And because of the way the turns work, these guys will be one of the last factions to make their turn over here in Cathay. One of the reasons you can't ignore the Burning Wind Nomads is that if you do, Xiaoming just goes down and wipes them out, and the event triggers. So you want to have that control, and the best way to do so is have a small army over there. That's assuming that you want to go completely crazy. How crazy can we talk about? Well, you can conquer Kugaf and Gorst and set up some tier 1 settlements over here if you want to. Or you can play a very, very different game right here completely. So that is just the strategic situation that Gelt does have. He also has a bunch of advantages in terms of vision on the map, because he does have these free quest battles that give him vision on various sections of the campaign map, beyond Gotrek and Felix and the caravans that also give him vision on the map if he's allied with Cathay.
If you hope to walk off.
He doesn't have any limitation on conquering Empire territory either. Now, beyond that, the key mechanic that Gelt does have has to do with mages. So he gets Winds of Magic +5 for which each wizard, lord, or hero in an army. So I imagine that they may have intended to make wizard lords at one point, decided not to, instead made master engineers. Or it's just there because, yeah, Gelt is a wizard lord, and so is Elspeth, should point out. Then he gets a hero crew rank +2. But he really has unlimited battle mages because of the colleges of magic over here. He can recruit an unlimited number of battle mages. You gain arcane essays for battle, you spend them to recruit mages, you spend them to get cataclysm spells, certain items, certain benefits. There's a whole bunch of ridiculous stuff. And there's actually a lot of effort that Creative Assembly put in these spells. Like this spell, the Dance of Despair, just looks freaking awesome in an actual battle. You can get stock stance for the target army with a Grey Wizard, for instance. Ambush success chance 100%. So it's like the ultimate stock stance, but it's only available for 2 turns with a 6-turn cooldown. But you do have a lot of power here. You can get higher ranked mages. To be sure, you won't have the best traits available for these mages, because you won't be able to just pick and choose that. But the upside is you end up having a lot of hero flexibility on the campaign map. You can end up in situations. One campaign I was playing as Gelt, I confederate Averheim from a distance, and then Vlad sent 6 stacks against it. Well, it wasn't Vlad himself. If he had been himself, I would have lost. But he sent 6 stacks. I had an army, but one of the principal reasons I was able to win that battle is because I was able to unleash some of these cataclysm spells or some of these abilities combined with high ranked mages that Gelt does have, and I would just be able to spawn them. It's important to know they spawn with movement range, so you can always instantly attach them to an army. So even if you have absolutely nothing to defend the region, between the Electric Count State Troopers, Regiments Renown, and Mages, you can have a very flexible force available to you very, very quickly during the course of this campaign. It's not something to be underestimated when we're talking about Gelt's campaign dynamics. And those 10 turns of free upkeep and population surplus, well, one of the reasons you might want to take your time a bit is because if you do take your time, like 20 turns or so, then you can easily end up with tier 5 settlements by like turn 30. Well, tier 4 at the very least, right? It depends on the noble situation. Because remember, the Empire has a little trick up its sleeve with regards to construction as well. See, the Empire has a certain trait called Noble. Now, I can't use it here, but Noble, what it does as a trait, I'm not sure if I have anyone with it, but Noble is a really powerful benefit with respect to construction. Just I don't think I have one. I have Regal, but I don't think I have any Noble available right here. But if you were to use, actually I do. So you can have a bunch of Noble Lords ready. Like even if you're not using a load save character system, you could have a bunch of these combined with a population surplus. You can really get known to tier 5. So you can unleash steam tanks, land ships, demigriffs, you name it. The combination of free construction with instant construction with population surplus whenever you capture a territory just makes you the master of the Empire. And that is the insanity of Gelt's campaign. It's up to you to determine how far you want to go, but do remember one aspect of Gelt. He has an inherent economic advantage because every free turns you can print 3,500 gold. So that means your actual income is not plus 3,000 over. It's not 3,000, it's 4,000. Because you should be using this on cooldown. It is that big of a benefit, and it's not really an expensive arcane essays. It's out of our things that cost arcane essays, this is actually one of the cheaper options, and it is a pretty gigantic benefit to use in your campaign. In the Empire, I would recommend going for null, but you do have a bunch of choices. This is another great aspect of Gelt's campaign. Because of the variety that you do have in terms of choices in this campaign, you're not actually required to defeat any particular faction. So unlike, say, Elspeth, who has to deal with Vlad for victory condition, or Karl, who has to deal with Estus, Kastrak, all that, you can choose what you're going to do. Furthermore, you actually have a really good climate situation. You don't have wasteland, but you do have mountain. So that means then this entire section of the map, the entire Empire, and the mountains surrounding the Empire are available to you. The entirety of the mountains and more, and basically all of Cathay, with the exception of this this magical forest right here, is available to you for colonization. The Darklands won't be, but that's why Emmerich and Greasus exist. This is the one thing that really sells this campaign as far as I see it. Now, to be certain, the downside is you do spend a lot of time to set it up, and once you do set it up, it is ridiculously, incredibly powerful. But if you were looking to play a longer campaign, I think, then I would say that the sheer amount of possibilities do make this extremely replayable from the perspective of a longer campaign. I don't think longer campaigns work right now in the game, at least on modded. There's certain things you can do, like better AI mods and all that kind of stuff. I don't think they necessarily work the best, but I think that if there was a proper end game, this would probably be the best campaign of the Empire. But we don't have a proper end game right now. But it does have power. It does have flexibility. It does have kind of your pick your own adventure type campaign. And I think that is something that does make this campaign work very well. Costin signing out. Stay tuned for more.